Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajikacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad. His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajikacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad. His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad-gītā Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktabinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Looks like text 50. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 8th day of April, 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad-gītā as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Sorry, not on the floor. Just tuck it in under the book. Yeah, thank you. Okay. So, page 117, text 50. Okay. Buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe sukrita dushkrite Tasmad yogaya yujyasva yoga karma sukhaushalam buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe sukrita dushkrite tasmad yogaya yujyasva yoga karma sukhaushalam buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe sukrita dushkrite tasmad yogaya yujyasva yoga karma sukhaushalam. Nilesh. Buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe sukrita dushkrite tasmad yogaya yujyasva yoga karma sukhaushalam. Go ahead, Aditya. Buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe sukrita dushkrite tasmad yogaya yujyasva yoga karma sukhaushalam. Matthias. Buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe sukrita dushkrite tasmad yogaya yujyasva yoga karma sukhaushalam. Prabhu at the end. Buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe sukrita dushkrite tasmad yogaya yujyasva yoga karma sukhaushalam. Ladies. Buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe sukrita dushkrite tasmad yogaya yujyasva yoga karma sukhaushalam. Buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe sukrita dushkrite tasmad yogaya yujyasva yoga karma sukhaushalam. The end there? Go ahead. Jahatiha ubhe sukrita dushkrite yogaya yujyasva kaushalam. Buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe sukrita dushkrite tasmad yogaya yujyasva yoga karma sukhaushalam. Asha, you did it already. You want to try? Okay. Buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe sukrita dushkrite tasmad yogaya yujyasva yoga karma sukhaushalam. Bhakta Chad.
Buddhi yukto jahatita
Buddhi yukto jahatiha
ube sukrita dushkrite
ubhe sukrita dushkrite
tasma yogaya yujyasva
tasmad yogaya yujyasva
yoga karma sukhaushalam.
yoga karma sukhaushalam. He's in Nebraska. Really? For real? Yeah. Okay, word by words. I'll read them, you just read along. Buddhi yukta, one who is engaged in devotional service. Jahati, can get rid of, iha, in this life, ubhe, both, sukrita, dushkrite, good and bad results. Tasmat, therefore, yogaya, for the sake of devotional service, yujyasva, be so engaged, yogaha, Krishna consciousness, karmasu, in all activities, kaushalam, art. Translation. Krishna says to Arjuna, a man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad reactions even in this life. Therefore strive for yoga, which is the art of all work, and that holds for women also. Hare Krishna. Purport. Since time immemorial, each living entity has accumulated the various reactions of his good and bad work. As such, he is continuously ignorant of his real constitutional position. One's ignorance can be removed by the instruction of the Bhagavad-gītā, which teaches one to surrender unto Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa in all respects and become liberated from the chained victimization of action and reaction, birth after birth. Arjuna is therefore advised to act in Krishna consciousness, the purifying process of resultant action or reaction. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandana salakaya chakshur unmilatam mena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, we're nearing the end of the chapter. Krishna is speaking here about Buddhi Yoga. Now, Buddhi Yoga, as it turns out, is another way of saying Bhakti Yoga, but it stresses a certain aspect of Bhakti Yoga, specifically the use of the intelligence. And the idea is that Prabhupada is saying, or Krishna is saying here, that we need to get rid of both good and bad reactions in this life. Now, why do we want to get rid of the good reactions? The bad reactions, this is all based on the basic understanding that is explained since the beginning of the chapter, that we are eternal souls. Nobody dies. We simply change bodies. Krishna gave the analogy, remember, taking off the old dhoti and putting on a new jacket. The point is that we become completely absorbed in material life in identifying ourselves with the body. And that's very depressing because the body just gets older and older and older. And you say, oh, you know, now I remember all the wonderful things I used to do, the friends I had before everything hurt. You know, this is material life. Is that time? And Krishna says several times later on in the book, in the 11th chapter, 10th chapter, that I am time. Kala, I am as controller, I am time, and then he has this very dramatic in the 11th chapter. Kalosmi loka chayakrit pavidho. His man has this huge universal form. Arjuna is frightened. This is not the friend Krishna that he knows, you know. And so he's describing how I'm destroying everyone, and he's even showing it. You see, Arjuna watches as some of the show. He's seeing a preview of what's going to happen in a few hours on the battlefield. And the soldiers are entering into the mouth of the universal form, and he's crushing them, crushing their heads, and death, you know. And so Arjuna says, please, can I see the other form? The one I love. So Krishna goes back, you know, he shows him. But that's a very real thing, is time destroys everything. Everything is going to be destroyed by time, you know. And we live our lives in the illusion. The illusion, Maya, gives us the illusory thing, even though we know the little thought that it's not true, that if we just get it together, and you know, everything will be fine, you know. But it will never be fine. Even if you're healthy and young, you're enjoying, you got a good job, you get some money in the bank, you know, all of that is asat. It's temporary. By time, it'll take away. And if it doesn't take it away, it'll take you away. Just like, you know, these multi-billionaires who are so prominent now. I mean, how much do you need? My God. And so, but obviously, that what is that? They have the billions, and it's in an account or in the securities with their name on it. But it's not the name of the soul. It's the name of their body, right? Once you leave the body, everything else is left behind. The corpse and everything attached to the corpse. So what's the point? You know, and so much anxiety with the money, how to get it, how to spend it, how to preserve it. So that is an example of Maya's power to cover our real knowledge and to have us identify with this ever-changing body, which we are not. That's the lesson of this, the very prominent lesson of this chapter. That for the soul, there is never birth or death at any time. Jayate mriyate va kadachan, nayam bhut vava vitava. They're not coming into being. They're not going out of being. There's like zillions and zillions of souls. We are some of the fortunate few, even though we're supposedly 8 billion on the earth, but that's few compared to the, you know, when you walk, I take a walk every morning. I get a lot of lessons from this walk. And I'm passing various things, lawns. You know, lawns are fairly rare here because it's not the water. But there's a lawn, and I say, is it astroturf or not? You know, most of the time it is. There's no living entities there. But sometimes they take the trouble, like in the church, I think they have a portion that's a real lawn. So how many tens of thousands of blades of grass are there? Each one is another living entity. What a life! You know, the consciousness. We're all part and parcel of Krishna, and our birthright is to be Satchidananda, full of knowledge, full of bliss, and eternal life. That's and Krishna has that. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha. This is the first verse of the 5th chapter of the Brahma Samhita, which Lord Chaitanya, this is so authoritative. So what does that mean? Krishna is the supreme controller, he's the supreme God, and he has a body, Vigraha. He's not just a force or a presence or anything, he has a form, which is eternal, full of knowledge, and full of bliss. Now, I always like to bring this up in the Vedanta Sutra. Every word counts, you know, every syllable is important. Vedanta means the end of knowledge, the culmination of all knowledge is in these sutras, which are little aphorisms. So they need explanation, they're a little mysterious. But the first aphorism or sutra is a call to the human beings. It's like, Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Atato is a combination of two words in Sanskrit. Sanskrit is a very amazing language, very concise and very, able to express all things. And the meter, I'll give you an example of the meters. But anyway, so Atato means now, therefore. Now that's pretty far out. Here's the beginning of a book, and it says therefore. Usually, therefore, it comes at least after an argument. But all the other Vedas are the before. And now, therefore, you should understand. As a human being, you should inquire into Brahman. Now, what is that Brahman? That's in the next sutra. It says, Janma Yasya Yataha. So it's Janma Adi. Now, Adi means etc. So Janma means creation or birth. He's talking about, we should inquire, where did everything come from? You know? In other words, how did everything come about to be? You don't just accept it and try to exploit it. That's ignorance. But you should inquire, you know, where do I fit in? Who am I really? Who am I? And then after a little while living in the world, why am I suffering? And where did everything come from? And how can I achieve perfection in this life? So that's the implication of that second sutra. And Adi means after birth or creation comes maintenance and then destruction. Everything material goes through those phases, including our own body. Right? We were born, we grow, and then we sustain for some time. Maybe we have children, then we deteriorate, and finally, goodbye. We leave the body. But we don't cease to exist. We go into another body. So the logical thing is, what can we do in this body to get the best next body? And that's why we need this knowledge. Because it's all a question of consciousness. You learn early on in Krishna consciousness that you have two bodies. You have the gross body, which we call the body, everyone knows. But you also have a subtle body, consisting of mind, intelligence, and ego. The subtle elements. They don't die. They're not destroyed when the gross body dies. So in this lifetime, we are, of course, developing our gross body. Sometimes we'll lift weights or whatever, you know, so we can change it a little bit. But mostly, we are developing our subtle body. That's why education is so important. You see, so you'll have knowledge. You'll be able to live in this world, you know, successfully. So, and it's very clear in the 8th chapter and in different parts of the Bhagavad-gītā, all over the Vedas, your state of consciousness when you finally leave this body or die determines your next body. So so now as human beings, we can ask the question, well, what can I do to develop the best subtle body or mind and intelligence so that I'll get the best next body? And the best next body is no material body at all. It's your reviving, because we never lose it, our spiritual body. Krishna has a spiritual body in the world. He never gets old, and everyone in the spiritual world has the same kind of body. It doesn't have the fallibility of the gross body or the material body. Matter comes into being and it changes and eventually it disappears. But spirit is eternal. It simply changes its condition. And in the human form of life, we have the opportunity to act according to the instructions of the Shastra, or the scripture, which are written for our benefit. Krishna came here for our benefit to instruct us and reinstitute Dharma and so forth, so that we can get the best next body. Now the best next body, best next body, is no material body at all. And Prabhupada introduced this wonderful phrase, going back home, back to Godhead, means that's our home. That's where we came from. Just like in the Western, the Bible, right? We somehow fell. The original sin, we left the company of Krishna there. So if you can, just do one thing, and move over to this side. And we can get you a nice book you can follow along also. We have many books. So that's a wonderful concept if you really understand it. That is that we're all kind of exiles here. We don't belong here. We're aliens, Not illegal aliens, just aliens. Let's not go there, okay? Let's not go there. If we want to get deported, let's get deported to the spiritual world. Let's go. That's where we belong, right? Where we came from. So anyway, that's the thing you get from the Vedas, and it's not at all perceivable by material science or that kind of. It needs to be revealed, and this is where the mantra comes in. This is where the practice of yoga, beginning with this chanting of this Maha Mantra. It's become so popularized, people take it for granted, but it is the Maha Mantra. It is the most efficacious way to become aware again of our spiritual body and to act for our eternal benefit. So just one little quote from the Vedas, because the holy Upanishads, you may have heard of those, they're also very authoritative. So the Upanishads, in the Kali Santarana Upanishad, now the words are, the title of it is so important. It means the Upanishad by which you can be delivered from the Kali Yuga. This Yuga means an age. This age is like the last of 4 ages in a cycle. It's not very conducive to spiritual life in general, yoga, to try to meditate. You have to have a quiet, peaceful place. Where are you going to find that? And even if you go up to the Himalayas, who can do that? But that doesn't mean that there isn't a proper yoga practice in this age. We just have to know what it is. And Krishna came again. He came 5,000 years ago to Dwapara Yuga, and then he came in this Yuga just yesterday, by relatively 500 years ago, as opposed to 5,000 years ago or 100,000 years ago, as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He came and he acted as a devotee, the best devotee, perfect devotee. He didn't say surrender or else, He said just join the kirtan. Come on, it's all free. Anyone, doesn't matter who you are, with any gender, any social status, doesn't matter. You just chant Hare Krishna. That's your entryway. But that mantra is not. He didn't invent the mantra. In the Upanishad, Kali Santana Upanishad, there are 2 key verses. One is, all together now, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Second verse, Iti Shodashakam Nam, Kali Kalmasha Nasanam, Natak Padataropaya, Sarvavedeshu Drishyate, which means, these 16 names, if you count them, there's 16. Iti Shodashakam Nam, same word in the Sanskrit and English. Nam, name, Iti Shodashakam Nam, that's plural. Kali Kalmasha Nasanam. Kali Kalmasha means the evil effects of living in this age, where if you're just innocent, you'll be contaminated, and it's very difficult to make any. So Nashana means to destroy. By chanting this mantra and following in the instructions of the gurus and spiritual masters how to chant and how much to chant and what mentality, but basically to chant. Is the best means for destroying the evils and ills of this age. Kalmasha means contaminations and things that are harmful in this age. And I don't have to say a word. Just read the newspapers. You can see how harmful this age is. We're destroying the environment. Everyone knows. And let's sell more cars. And then, we need more electricity. Okay, we'll build some coal plants. Every day they open another coal plant in China. Coal is the worst, So, I mean, if you follow it, because I follow the Antarctica is melting. Okay, and if it melts completely, then it'll be 20, 30 feet of the oceans will raise up. But they never mention San Diego when they talk about the cities that'll be inundated. Because if you walk down to the beach, you walk on the boardwalk, there's like a good 20 feet below. Anyway, but it's horrendous. It's so that's what's going on, and we're just going straight ahead. So what response do we have? Well, first of all, we take care of our own enterprise of trying to get out of this world, but at the same time, to preach the doctrine of simple living and high thinking. All this complication of the transportation and the energies and the AI and the computers and the flights and the whole thing. We don't need all that. What we need is to have an environment in which we can enthusiastically and peacefully cultivate this higher knowledge. And that's why Srila Prabhupada worked so hard. It's miraculous what he did. Where if you read the life of Prabhupada, I think the Srila Prabhupada Lamada is quite voluminous. But there's also a condensed version. And I know the editor who put it together. He's very skilled. But just to begin this movement in 1965, at the age of 69, not in the best of health, no money, basically no contacts to get on a boat. Didn't fly. He had no money for that. Getting on not on a cruise ship or anything, but rather on a cargo ship, that had a little bunk in it. And he was elderly, he had 2 heart attacks, and he said, Krishna, if I have another one, I'm gone, So Krishna came to him in a dream and said, don't worry, I'm going to take charge of the ship. He told Prabhupada in a dream. Now, what was the time of year? September, which is hurricane season. Believe me, I know, because I lived in Miami for 6 years. When it came to be July, August, September, batten the hatches and watch the news on for the forecast, because you may have to leave quickly. So that throughout the Atlantic, you watch. Sometimes they go, off. They don't hit, and so it's a rough trip. But that particular crossing of the Atlantic was very, very quiet, very, very smooth. In fact, so much so that the captain was on there with his wife. He took his wife on the trip, and she said, "Swamiji, can you please come back with us?" That was the calmest trip we've ever had. So probably he lands in America, and it says, "Oh, Krishna, why haven't you brought me to this land? How am I going to tell these people?" So please. So then he wrote a poem. It's in Bengali. It's beautifully translated. Lord, if you give me the power to speak so that they can understand. Oh Lord, I am your puppet. Just make me dance, make me dance, make me dance if you like. And so it wasn't easy. A whole year went by before he really got any traction. He's there in New York City. How is he going to sustain himself? He had some books that he published, his first canon books. So he would go around to different bookstores in Manhattan and try to sell some books. He would take some on some consignment, and somehow he was keeping body and soul together. He had a friend, Dr. Mishra, who was another yoga teacher he established. He let him stay at his ashram like that, so he was able. And finally, he struck pay dirt when he went down to the Lower East Side where I lived. He was living about a block of where I lived 2 years later in 1968. First on the Bowery, which is, now we have homeless people everywhere, But in those days, there weren't so many homeless people. So if you got homeless or something, in Chicago, you went to New York and you got a place in the Bowery. So that was weird. And people on the street, drinking and everything. So he's living in a loft. And to get into the loft, the drunks would block the door. By the day would be knocked out. So they see Swamiji come, and they saw he was a saintly person. So they said, "Oh, sorry," and they roll out of the way, walk up. He's an old man, walking up 4 flights, But basically, the program was chanting the kirtan, and Mukunda was a professional musician. He was one of the first devotees, very wonderful devotee. And so it was popular because there were musicians down there and everything. I knew that. I lived down there. I know that area. So he got some traction, but we really got traction when he moved up a couple of blocks. above Houston Street, which is the border between the Bowery and actually Manhattan, and to a little storefront that had been very preciously entitled Matchless Gifts. They decided to leave that title up there. You know, it was for tchotchkes. You don't even know the term tchotchkes. You know, no one's a Jewish here. But so he was able to get that, and from that was the seed, and everything started to grow from there. He inspired some devotees. They went to the West Coast. They, you know, to San Francisco, the Summer of Love, 1967, the hippies. You know, everything's going on, dropping acid. So in that environment, yeah, let's try it. We'll try the chanting. Whoa, that's really good. And they asked Prabhupada, can we print a little pamphlet that says, stay high forever, chant Hare Krishna? He said, yeah, that's a good idea. So they actually printed that, not a flyer, you know, just a flyer. And Allen Ginsberg had gone to India, and somehow he picked up the chanting of Hare Krishna. He had no idea what it was or anything, but he liked chanting, and he was famous. He was world famous. So Prabhupada got on the front of not the front, but on the New York Times. You know, he said, "Oh, this is when people came to." So it's quite a story of how you know, he developed it just in 12 years, all over the world. So this temple is part of his legacy, and these books are part of his legacy. That was the whole thing, which I won't get into. I had the great Benedict. I've been doing this for 52 years now, since '73, and I joined at just the one temple in the world where the books were being printed out, you know, were being put together. And I had, you know, I was a smarty pants student. I didn't get much past the first year of college, but I, you know, 680 on my English SAT, not bad. Yeah. Anyway, it turned out that I could read, and so so I told the manager of the books. I said, you know, I'm reading this Krishna book. I'm finding a lot of little mistakes. Oh, really? You know, we're going to reprint soon. Here's a red pen. You know, they didn't give me a place to work. Didn't give me any time in the schedule. But you just read it, and whatever you mark up, we'll see what. So after a month or two, I finished the book, and it said, oh, then we should get you on the press. So there was a tug of war between what I was going to work on. So I started proofreading in '73, and then gradually I became an editor. And the greatest good fortune that I was able to be part of the marathon. There was a 17 books in 2-month marathon. You do not publish that many books in 2 months. You know? But Prabhupada gave him the order: you got to do it or you're disqualified. So, you know, I mean, we had some ladies. I was living in an office, and then there was another building behind me, and there was one lady. She was typing all night, you know, and I had to close the window and make sure, because I wouldn't been able to sleep. So it was a great opportunity, and I'll always treasure that. All right, so back to the verse. So buddhi yukta jahatiya ubedu. Now, why would we want to give up the good results of our activities? Because material activities, no matter how good they are, you know, very pious, but basically for a material benefit. If you're kind and generous and you charitable and you try to help people, that's good karma. And the next year life, then people will be kind and generous to you. You'll be in good shape, you know. So that's good results. But you want to get rid of those good results, because those good results means you have to come back to another body. You see, it's not good enough. The best result is no karma. You see, you understand? Akarma, yes. So that's what he's talking about here. Buddhi yukto, if one is intelligent, is linking with its intelligence, engaged in devotional service, he can neutralize all the karma. So that you don't, because the karma brings you back. That's the idea, you see. Anything fruitive, anything that's just self-centered is karma. Now, even if you're helping others, but on the bodily platform, that's also activity that'll bring you back. You get another pious birth. We don't want another pious birth. We want a birth in the spiritual world. You see? Hare Krishna. Do you want to get some seats? We have all of these cushions. You see? And of course, the curtains will open at 8:15 for darshan. You know, you can sit there. So we're on nearing the end of the second chapter, Bhagavad Gita. So therefore, he says, therefore, be engaged in yoga. Yoga karma kaushalam. Strive for which is the art of all work. This kaushali is a word in all activities. The ultimate art, how to live in this world and act. Work means activities. which doesn't create more karma for you to come back, but actually gets rid of your past karma and paves your way for the trip to the spiritual world, which is beyond all karmic activity. So that's what Krishna is strive for yoga. Yoga means connection. Strive for activity that will keep you connected to God at every step, you see? And that's why we don't want to become attached to the fruits of our activity, because we are false enjoyers. That enjoying spirit separate from Krishna is what's got us here in the material world and what keeps us here. But if we're trying to find out what does Krishna want us to do, like Krishna wants Arjuna to fight. Now he's representing us. For his own reasons, he decided not to fight. Even though it was materially very nice, he didn't want to kill his grandfather and his teacher, you know. And so I'll just go off to the forest and become him. But that wasn't his duty, and that wasn't Krishna's plan, as it comes out in the 4th chapter. You know, this battle is for the rule of the earth, basically. And he's going to be ruled by evil or by good. And good in the personification of Yudhishthira, who's the son of Dharmaraj, of Yudhishthira, of Yamaraj. So that Krishna very much wants to reestablish Dharma. He says that in the 4th chapter very explicitly. That's one of his goals. Now Arjuna is a key figure there, because he's the greatest fighter on the side of good. If he gets cold feet and doesn't fight, then all bets are off, so to speak, you know. So Krishna is there on the chariot, and he's going to teach him and show him. And in the end, Arjuna has these key words: Kadishe vachanam tava. I will do as you say. Now we can also come to that point. If we come to the point and say, I will do as you say, Krishna. You know, what is that? Manmana bhavamad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mamai vaishasi satyam te patijane priyosi me. I put it into a little poem. Krishna says to all of us, just think of me, become devoted, worship me, and bow down low. You'll come to me, O friend, I promise you this boon I shall bestow. And then in the next verse he clinches it. Sarva dharma parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam savapapebhyo mokshayisyami mashaja. Just give up all other dharmas and surrender only unto me. Your sins I'll nullify, O Arjuna. From anxiety be free. So this is for all of us. That's the lesson of the Bhagavad Gita in a nutshell. But to come to that point, we need the other chapters. You know, what's the modes of nature and all of these things. So this is the introduction, and you know, with your intelligence linked to me, you know, give up all the results of good and bad activity. We don't want that. And always remain linked in yoga to Krishna. And that'll be most auspicious. All right, should we go on? Next verse. Karmajam buddhi yukta hi phalam tyaktva manishinaha janma bandhavani mukta padam gacchantanamayam. By thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages and devotees free themselves from the results of work in the material world. In this way, they become free from the cycle of birth and death and attain the state beyond all miseries by going back to Godhead. So it's all in that one verse. Purport. The liberated living entities belong to that place where there are no material miseries. The Srimad Bhagavatam 10:14-58 says, Samashitaye padapallavaplavam mahatpadam punyasho marare pavambudi vatsapadam parampadam padam padam yan vipadam natesham. This is one of 3 or 4 important comparing the human body to a boat going across the ocean of the birth and death. For one who has accepted the boat of the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of the cosmic manifestation and is as famous as Mukunda or Murari, or the giver of mukti, the ocean of the material world is like the water contained in the calf's hoofprint. Parampadam, or the place where there are no material miseries, or Vaikuntha, is his goal, not the place where there is danger at every step. So we'll review this verse after the purport. Owing to ignorance, one does not know that this material world is a miserable place where there are dangers at every step. Out of ignorance only, less intelligent persons try to adjust to the situation by fruitive activities, thinking that the resultant actions will make them happy. They do not know that no kind of material body anywhere within the universe can give life without miseries. The miseries of life, namely birth, death, old age, and diseases, are present everywhere within the material world. But one who understands his real constitutional position as the eternal servitor of the Lord, and thus knows the position of the personality of Godhead, engages himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Consequently, he becomes qualified to enter into the Vaikuntha planets. Now, just one word on pronouns, because I know pronouns can be very controversial these days. Prabhupada learned English, in the early 1900s in India. And at that time, the male pronouns were used generally, but they mean human beings. You understand. You all know that. All the ladies understand. Okay, so we'll move on. To know one's constitutional position means to know also the sublime position of the Lord. One who wrongly thinks that the living entity's position and the Lord's position are on the same level is to be understood to be in darkness and therefore unable to engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord. He becomes a Lord himself and thus paves the way for the repetition of birth and death. But one who, understanding that his position is to serve, transfers himself to the service of the Lord, at once becomes eligible for Vaikuntha Loka. Service for the cause of the Lord is called Karma Yoga or Buddhi Yoga, or in plain words, devotional service to the Lord. So just one note about this boat verse. So this verse says that the Lord's feet are like a boat. Samashrita means taking full shelter of the lotus feet, the boat of the lotus feet of the Lord, which is what? Mahatpadam. Now that has two meanings. It means that where all the Mahatmas stay, and also where the Mahatattva is resting, the whole creation is resting on Krishna. Punya Yasho Murari. Murari is the name for Krishna. He's the enemy of a Mura demon, is one of his pastimes. And Punya Yasha means just by glorifying him and his fame, one attains pious credits, bhakti credits. In other words, it's very purifying. But then the result is Bhavambudir. Ambudir means an ocean, and Bhava means birth and death. So that big ocean of birth and death, and we have a great example out here, really big ocean, it shrinks all the way down to the water, not in a cow's hoof print, but a calf, even smaller. In other words, it's very easy to cross over. Then you don't really need a boat anymore. Once you're in the boat, you don't need it. Vatsapadam, that's the calf, the foot. Parampadam. Parampadam is the supreme abode, back to Godhead. And then the last line, very famous, and then, it's so poetic. Bhavambudir vatsa padam, parampadam, padam padam, you have the padam, the desha. So padam means, not for them is this place where there's danger at every step. Now we're sitting here very comfortably. I've been here a long time, since '89. And as soon as I arrived from Florida, I realized, well, I don't have to worry about the hurricanes much anymore, but what about the earthquakes? Right? And I looked on the map, whoa, it's San Andreas Fault. But when it gets down here, it moves a little east. Well, maybe we'll be saved, So, sure enough, I think it was it was in 90, maybe it was 94. I was upstairs chanting. They used to have the store up there, and they would chant Hare Krishna, the japa. And suddenly, everything was moving, the whole building was moving, So I ran down the stairs. Now, I should have run into the temple and right on the altar and held the deities. But I didn't do that. I ran out the door. That's the state I was in. But that didn't help. The sidewalk is like this, too. I'm like on a big surfboard, That's as bad as it got. But it was a warning, So that's still possible, So that's the danger at every step. And we know you're on the highway or whatever. The pandemic was, there's a nice silver lining. Everybody got a little sober as to how tenuous life is. Breathing, you take it for granted. Couldn't take it for granted. I'm going to Sprouts. Wear your mask. I don't know, put the mask on. So that's what material life is like. There's always some danger coming. You may be able to forget it and think things are okay, but eventually it becomes. So, but those who have taken shelter of that boat and gone to the spiritual world, they don't have to worry about that. Now, there's some other boats. Krishna says, this is Nirdehamadhyam, Sulabham Sudurlabham, Plavam Sukalpam, Gurukarnadaram, Mayanukulyena Nabasviteditam, Puman Bababdi Nataret Saatmaha. He says this human body is a boat that can take you across, you see. Unlike the body of the dogs and everything, they don't have the intelligence. Sulabham Sudulabham. It is, this is a play on words. Sulabham means easily attained, because everyone gets a human body. Every soul comes to the human platform eventually. This is really evolution of consciousness. But it's Sudurlabham, it's rare. There's only 8 billion of us, and there's 8 billion blades of grass on a big lawn, you know. I mean, so we're way outnumbered. So Sulabham Sudurlabham. So you say, okay, I got it, but it's rare, so use it properly. Plavam Sukalpam, very nicely constructed boat, the human body, human form. Plavam Sukalpam Guru Karnadaram. You need a good captain for any boat to be, and the captain is a bona fide spiritual master, Guru Karnadaram. I have no idea why a captain is called a Karnadara. It sounds like something you wear on your ear. But anyway, that's the word for a captain. Karnadaram. Then you need favorable winds, because it's a sailboat. There's no motorboat, no motor in there. Mayanukulyena nabasviteridam. My words in the Bhagavad-gītā and other Shastra, and you know, that's the favorable winds to push you across the ocean, you see. Nabasviteridam. Then the final line, the punchline. Puman bhavabdim nataret sa atmaha. That human being who does not, with all of this facility, cross over the ocean of birth and death and go back to Godhead is committing the spiritual suicide. Atmaha. You know, you're wasting this precious gift of the human form of life. So therefore, don't waste it. Come to Bhagavad-gītā class. Even if there isn't a Taco Tuesday, we still have class 3 times a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You're all invited for tomorrow also. Now here's one more boat. The boat is very nice, because a boat is something you can take shelter of to cross a dangerous, you know. So this is great. This is in the 12th canto. Not many devotees know this verse. 4th chapter of the 12th canto describes, 12th canto is very sobering, different kinds of annihilations, okay? The big annihilation where everything is destroyed, the end of Brahma's day where things are pretty much destroyed, but then they come back. And then our own death, that's an annihilation for us, you know. But then at the end of the chapter, it's a pretty sobering chapter, but at the end of the chapter there's this very hopeful verse. So he says, Sangsara sindamati dustada mutti teshor nanak plavo bhagavatak purushottamasya lila katarasa nishevanam antarena pulmam pungso bhaved vivada dukkha tabardhitasya. So in the one verse they use the analogy of the ocean, which is dangerous, and the blazing fire, forest fire, which you need to get immediately saved from, you know. So he says, Sangsara Sindhum means the ocean of samsara, birth, death, old age. Ati dustaram, very difficult to cross over. But for those who are eager to cross over it, Utti Tirshor, there's this one boat. Nanyak Blabo Bhagavad. There's no other boat. Because we just read about 2 other boats, but anyway. Nanak Blabo Bhagavatak Purushottamasya Lilakata. The descriptions of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhagavatak Purushottamasya Lilakata Rasani Shevanam, to develop the taste, to cultivate the taste for hearing the pastimes of the Lord. Rasani Shevanam Antarena, there's no other one. And then for those who are those human beings, Pungso Bhaved Vivada Dukkha Tabardhitasya, who are suffering various miseries in this forest fire of the material world. So we have the boat, the human body, and we have the opportunity to cross over this dangerous ocean. And this is exactly the right thing. To hear the Bhagavad-gītā, study the Bhagavad-gītā, and try to, as far as possible, live the instructions of the Bhagavad-gītā. And it all, you know, starts with thinking of Krishna. And the best way to think of Krishna is to chant his holy name, hear about him, and then, just as an example, we're going to have to adjourn soon for kirtan and arti. But our great acharyas, like the 6 Goswamis, they have written such wonderful descriptions of Krishna and his pastimes. And poetry is so itself, even without knowing the meaning, is so attractive. And we have the good fortune. I had a friend named Kushakrata who started translating back in the 70s. And I made some recordings. So I'll give you an example of that. Some that I put into poetry. Okay, because there's many people here haven't heard. So this is one of my favorites. To pray, you know, to always remember Krishna. So he's saying, not just, oh, but please, oh Krishna, please let your beautiful lotus face be ever planted and growing nicely in the lake of my heart. This is so Smita Duchi Makadanda. Now just this beautiful lilting meter. Smita Duchi Makadanda, Syandi Bhaktrara Vindam, Tavapada Padahangsan Vishtagandham Mukunda. Viduchita Pashupari Neta Saranga Rangam, Mamadidiyata Dage Sangamangi Karotu. When the curtains open, just study Krishna's face, Giridhari's face, because it's all about the face. From the lotus of your face, dear Lord, trickles forth the luscious nectar of the beauty of your smile. Your exalted devotees, great swans, seek the fragrance of that lotus which does air their hearts beguile. Your beloved gopis' eyes, mad bees, taste a most exquisite pleasure in that lotus of your face. O my dear Mukunda Dev, I pray, may the lake of my poor heart be by that lotus ever graced. Okay, we have time for one more. Now this is a very yeah. Let's see if I hope I can remember the Sanskrit. So this is a prayer. This is a prayer to be lifted up by Krishna from this dangerous well of Maya. Manasajapani dushte labdapatos mi dushte timandagahana rupe hanta sangsara kupe ajitanikala daksha heta mudara daksham upanaya mamahaste bhakti rajum namaste. Fallen in this deep and dark and dirty well of Maya, threatened by the snake of lust whose venom burns like fire. Helplessly I pray, O Lord, whose strength is never in doubt, place the rope of bhakti in my hands and pull me out. Now, what do we have to do? Hold on to that rope, which means becoming serious about following the principles and practices of devotional service. And then Krishna will save us. He wants to save us. But we have to, on our part, we learn about that bhakti, what the principles are, and begin following. And it's very easy to start. 2 rounds a day. This is how I started. 2 rounds a day before going to work. I had a job. So I went to work, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare. And on the way to work, I was singing the Hare Krishna mantra. But it changed everything. I became very curious. What is this mantra? Is it changing? I don't have any depression anymore. I feel really hopeful. And then I tried to cure my patients with the mantra. I had a little success. I'll tell you about it next time. We're going to run out of time. But actually, it cured me, and I knew I could sense the potency of it. And to find out some of my successes, and you can use it, to just project them out. The cure is basically to talk to someone, make friends with them, and convince them to also chant. That's the most auspicious thing. Okay, we need to adjourn. Let's see. Okay, one more quick one. This one we made into a T-shirt. Since pleasure is a dream, Krishna supreme, the aim is praying and the way is the name. How about that? What was the other ones I had? Of course, famous one. Everybody dies, nobody dies. Wake up, and open your eyes. You're not that body, you're a pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. Okay, let's adjourn for Kirtan 5 minutes. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for coming. And you're all welcome. Write to me at Dravida108 at Gmail. And I'll send you my little poetry file and a link to all my recordings. I made recordings like this. Hare Krishna.